Sometimes life hits so hard it knocks the wind out of your spirit. The diagnosis, the betrayal, the loss, the breakdown after all your prayers and fasting. In those moments, the question echoes in the depths of your soul, God, why? Not why me, but why this? Why now? Why would a loving God allow this to happen? And then we read Romans 8:28, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. It sounds comforting, but when you're in the middle of a storm, those words can feel distant, because in the moment, pain doesn't feel good. It feels like chaos, like abandonment, like silence from heaven. But here's what you need to know. God is not absent in your pain. He is active in it. Pain is often the classroom where purpose is revealed. God doesn't waste suffering. The enemy wants you to believe that your pain is punishment, but Romans 8:28 tells us something else entirely. It's a process. All things work together. That means your tears, your delays, your heartbreaks, your mistakes. None of it is isolated. God weaves them like threads in a divine tapestry. And what you think is the end is just a piece of the bigger masterpiece God is building. Sometimes he allows what he hates to accomplish what he loves, your transformation, your growth, your intimacy with him. Before we go further, I want you to hold this truth. Your pain is not pointless, and in God's hands, it can become powerful. Most people assume that if they're suffering, something must be wrong with their faith or that God is disappointed in them. But Scripture shows us something radical. Some of the people God loved most suffered deeply. Joseph was thrown into a pit by his own brothers and falsely imprisoned. For years, David was anointed king, yet hunted like an animal. Job lost everything in a single day, and Jesus, the beloved Son of God, was crucified. So why do we associate pain with God's absence, when in reality, pain is often the evidence of his process? Romans 8:28 doesn't promise that everything will feel good. It promises that everything will work for good. That means God can use what hurts you to shape what heals others. He can use what you lost to develop what lasts in you. Sometimes God allows pain not to break you, but to burn off what you were never meant to carry. Bitterness, pride, fear, shallow faith. Pain purifies. Pain stretches. Pain prepares. Here's the hard truth. If you want to live with divine purpose, you must be willing to walk through divine pressure. There is no resurrection without crucifixion. There is no crown without a cross. Pain is not the opposite of God's love. It's often the path that leads you deeper into it. Don't waste your pain. Let God redeem it. When Romans 8:28 says all things work together for good, it doesn't mean only the pleasant seasons, the answered prayers, the victories. It means the entire spectrum, the wounds, the waiting, the betrayal, the mistakes, the detours, the dark nights. He's using it all. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is random. Every thorn, every delay, every tear is being threaded into purpose. That doesn't negate your responsibility or your pain. You still make choices. People still hurt you. The world still breaks. But God's sovereignty isn't a threat to your freedom. It's the backdrop behind it. He's not orchestrating evil, but he's sovereignly weaving even rebellion and injustice into a greater redemptive story. Think of Joseph. His brothers meant to kill him. They sold him into slavery. That was evil, selfish, cruel. But God turned the very plot designed for destruction into the place where Joseph saved nations. The same hands that pushed him into a pit became the very hands that lifted him to the throne. That's how all things works. The broken pieces don't stay broken. They become the foundation of your testimony. Or look at Peter. His denial was painful, shameful, disqualifying in his own eyes. But that failure became the birthplace of humility, the soil for restoration, the proof that grace can rebuild what guilt tried to destroy. So when pain comes, don't try to separate the good from the bad and pretend only one side is in God's plan. He is working through the bad, around the evil, and despite the enemy to bring you to the destination he designed before time. This is not cheap positivity. It's deep, strategic, divine craftsmanship. Your pain isn't a detour from purpose. It's often the route. And the promise isn't that you'll understand every twist, but that He's already turned those twists toward your good. Pain is one of the loudest voices in the human experience. It has a way of getting your attention, stripping away distractions, and forcing you into confrontation with what really matters. But pain is not your master. It's a messenger. It's not meant to define you, it's meant to direct you. God doesn't cause all pain, but He allows it because of what it reveals. Pain reveals your limits. It exposes your idols. It peels back the layers of your self-reliance until you come face to face with your need for God. Without pain, pride reigns. Without pain, you drift. Without pain, you often settle in places you were never meant to stay. Sometimes the most loving thing God can do is allow discomfort to uproot you. The prodigal son didn't come back to the Father because of a sermon. He returned because of suffering, hunger, loneliness, desperation. The famine did what words could not. And so often in our lives, God permits the famine so we'll remember where home is. Your pain may not be punishment. It may be preparation. It's the tool that softens your heart, opens your ears, and recalibrates your priorities. That heartbreak, that loss, that silence, it all becomes the soil where trust is born. You don't learn to depend on God until you've had everything else stripped away. You don't learn to walk by faith until sight fails. Pain is not the end of the story, it's the turning point. And once you understand that, you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking God, what are you showing me through this? That shift is where peace begins. Let's be honest, the good we often hope for is comfort, clarity, success, and relief. But Romans 8:28 is not about God making life easy. It's about God making life meaningful, eternally meaningful. The good God promises is not always the good that feels good. It's the good that transforms you, the good that sanctifies you, the good that breaks chains, not just makes you feel better. He's not just solving problems, He's shaping people. And His primary concern is not your comfort, it's your character. That means sometimes He will allow what hurts to develop what's holy. Sometimes He will delay what you want to build in you what you need. Sometimes He will allow you to be misunderstood, so you learn how to be secure in Him alone. The good He is working is often invisible at first, but undeniable in hindsight. You might not see the full picture right now. You might be standing in a storm that makes no sense. But faith doesn't require full understanding. It requires full surrender. Romans 8:28 is not a cliche, it's a covenant. It's a promise that God is too wise to make mistakes and too loving to be careless with your life. So when your plans fall apart, when your prayers seem unanswered, when your heart feels crushed, don't assume God has left. He's closer than you think, and He's not done. Because the good He's working isn't just about getting you out of the fire, it's about refining you in it, until His image shines through the ashes. There will be seasons in life when nothing around you adds up, when prayers go unanswered, doors remain closed, and pain persists longer than you thought possible. These are the seasons that test the depth of your faith, not in what God does, but in who He is. Can you trust God when you don't understand Him? That's the real question. Faith is not just believing when it's clear, it's clinging when it's confusing. It's saying, God, I don't get this, I wouldn't have chosen this, but I trust you anyway. Think of Job. He lost everything, his children, his health, his wealth. His own wife said, curse God and die. But Job held on, not because he understood the why, but because he knew the who. And in the end, God restored what was lost and revealed a deeper understanding of His glory. We often want clarity, but God desires trust. We want explanations, but God gives revelation, on His terms, not ours. Sometimes the silence of God is not His absence, but His invitation to deeper faith. God is not obligated to explain Himself, but He is committed to walking with you through the storm. So when it doesn't make sense, trust anyway. When it hurts, worship anyway. When you feel abandoned, pray anyway. That's the kind of faith that moves mountains, not always around you, but always within you. Because on the other side of that confusion, there's a deeper intimacy that can't be taught, only birthed through pain. Romans 8:28 reminds us that all things work together for good, but we often forget that all things include pain, betrayal, waiting, and loss. The promise isn't that each moment will feel good, but that every moment will serve a greater good. God sees the entire timeline. You only see the scene you're in. It's like standing too close to a painting. Up close, all you see are rough strokes and odd colors. But when you step back, the masterpiece is revealed. That's how God works. What you're calling a breakdown might actually be a breakthrough in disguise. What you think is rejection might be divine redirection. That unanswered prayer could be the very thing protecting you from harm you couldn't foresee. God is not in a rush. He's not moved by pressure or panic. He works with eternity in mind. So even when things seem to be falling apart, they might actually be falling into place. Joseph told his brothers, "What you meant for evil, God meant for good." That's the perspective Romans 8:28 births in us. Not denial of pain, but the ability to see purpose in it. So, hold on. You might not see the full picture yet, but God is painting something beautiful with the colors of your suffering, your waiting, and your faith. And when He's finished, you'll realize nothing was wasted. Pain is not just something we endure. In God's hands, pain becomes a platform, a pulpit from which His glory is preached. Your story, your wounds, your battles, they are not in vain. They carry a message far louder than any sermon you could speak. Some of the most powerful ministries were birthed from the deepest wounds. People who have been broken know how to speak to brokenness. People who've suffered loss know how to comfort those grieving. People who have wrestled with depression, addiction, betrayal, these are the people God often raises to shine His light. Paul said in 2 Corinthians 1:4, God comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort others. Your pain is producing compassion. Your trials are training you to be someone's miracle. Don't despise your story. Redeem it. The enemy wants you to think your pain disqualifies you, but in God's kingdom, it qualifies you. Jesus Himself showed His wounds to His disciples after the resurrection. Why? Because His scars were proof of victory, not defeat. When you allow God to heal you, your pain becomes power. When you give Him your broken pieces, He builds something unshakable. You may not have chosen the fire, but if you walk through it with Him, you'll come out refined, not ruined. So don't be ashamed of what broke you. Let God use it to bless someone else, because your testimony is someone else's survival guide. There is a type of pain that's not punishment, it's purification. God is not cruel, He's a refiner. And just like gold must pass through fire to be made pure, so must your soul pass through pressure to be made whole. Malachi 3:3 says, He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. Notice, it says He sits. He doesn't walk away. He doesn't leave you alone in the fire. He watches. He waits. He knows exactly how much heat your soul can handle, and He stays until the impurities rise and the beauty remains. There are things in us, pride, fear, selfishness, idols, that don't leave by comfort. They only leave through fire. It's in the furnace where character is forged. It's in the heat where what's fake burns away and what's real rises to the surface. The refiner doesn't put you through pain to destroy you, but to reveal you, to show you the strength He placed in you, to burn away the false identities, the fragile crutches, and the things you thought you needed but were only holding you back. You are becoming something eternal, and fire doesn't destroy what's eternal, it purifies it. So if you're in the fire right now, don't panic. The refiner is near, and when you come out on the other side, you won't look like the flames, you'll shine like gold. Because Romans 8:28 isn't just about rescue, it's about refinement. There will be moments when the pain feels unbearable, when the silence of God is louder than your cries, when the doors stay closed, the healing doesn't come, and the prayers feel unanswered. And it's in those moments you will face your greatest test, not of strength, but of trust. Can you trust God when it doesn't make sense? Can you trust Him when He says all things work together for good, but all you see is loss, betrayal, and delay? This is where faith becomes more than feelings. This is where you stop leaning on your understanding and start leaning on His heart. God never promised a life without pain, but He did promise His presence through it. Isaiah 43:2 says, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned." Not if, but when. Because pain is inevitable, but abandonment, never. God does not waste wounds. He collects every tear. He bottles every cry. And He is working, even in silence. Sometimes the greatest act of faith is not declaring a miracle. It's simply saying, "Lord, I don't understand this, but I still trust you." That kind of faith moves heaven. That kind of surrender silences hell. Because when you choose to trust, you step into alignment. You stop wrestling and start resting. Romans 8:28 isn't a shallow cliche. It's a deep well of promise for those who hold on when everything inside screams to let go. So if you're in a season of confusion, pain, or waiting, don't rush out of it. There's something sacred in the struggle. God is not absent. He is not late. He's simply shaping something greater than your eyes can see. Hold on. Because the very pain that's breaking you is the same pain God is using to bless you.